For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith, alongside Connor Morrissette for Instant Analysis from USC's 38-20 loss here in the Coliseum to UCLA. Connor, there's really no good way to put this loss. USC's had some one-score losses. They've had some close losses late in games. This one, basically the entire second half, the Bruins ran away with the rivalry win.
USC not even really competitive in the fourth quarter. They scored that touchdown late, but the game was already over, and they lose by 3 scores. I thought USC could definitely lose this game. I picked them to win by 3, but I wouldn't have been shocked if they'd lost. I'm surprised they lost by 3 scores. That's a big surprise to me. Even for as bad as this year's gone, that UCLA team's just not very good. And what does USC do, especially defensively? They gave up 2 more career highs. Rushing yards for TJ Harden, I think he had 143. That's a career high. Ethan Garbers had never thrown 3 touchdown passes in a game. Career high against USC. Lincoln Riley goes to the podium after the game and says, I need to be better, and we'll reevaluate everything, and I'm going to fight my ass off going forward. That all sounds good, but what you said off the air, Jack, where was that weeks ago? USC needed some reevaluation a long time ago, and they exit the Pac-12 with a whimper. What an awful, awful game tonight was for USC fans.
Yeah, too little, too late. You feel like USC owning up to some of those mistakes, saying we've got to be better, coming way too late in the season after a 5-loss regular season and a loss in their final Pac-12 game. USC scores a touchdown on its last offensive drive. Previously, they were 0 for 4 for touchdowns in the red zone, so too little, too late on the football field as well. And while I think we've said in the past couple weeks, even though USC has had some tough losses, they've lost coming into this one 4 of the last 5. You could say they fought hard in every game. I don't think you could say the same thing about today. It just didn't look like USC came out with a lot of fire. And UCLA on the other side, where you could have guessed maybe they don't show up because the Chip Kelly rumors were swirling around. They just lost 17-7 last week to Arizona State at home. They looked like the team that came out and wanted to win, and USC didn't seem like it put up much of a fight today compared to the last couple weeks.
And of course, the effort, like they were fighting. They didn't totally give up, but I know exactly what you mean, Jack. They didn't fight as hard as they have in the past games. The 2 stats I look at, when it mattered, UCLA was 12 of 19 on 3rd down, so when the money was on the table, USC had a chance to get a stop. UCLA got 12 first downs, and USC only got 7 stops. That was a big part of this game. I think back to the Ethan Garbers touchdown right in this end zone right over here when it was 3rd and goal, or they were just outside the 10. Full blitz comes, and Garbers gets it off to the last at the last second for a touchdown. USC just wasn't good enough in this game. And then the offensive line, just not even competitive at all tonight. And UCLA has a really good front, so it's a weakness for USC going up against the strength of UCLA. But I thought this was similar to Notre Dame, even a little bit worse than the Oregon performance, where I thought USC was manhandled at the line of scrimmage. There were some injuries. Jared Kingston wasn't there today. He was out, and Mason Murphy got hurt but came back. But either way, you're USC. I know you're rebuilding. Clay Helton left the cupboard empty. Whatever you want to say, that's just not good enough in the era of the transfer portal, no matter how you slice it, to get sliced up the way USC's offensive line did. So I look at the 3rd downs and the play of the offensive line as kind of bringing your point to life about the effort and not trying as hard as they needed to.
And it feels like, not saying this in an excuse way, but when it came down to football being a game of inches, UCLA was on the winning side of a lot of those, where USC couldn't quite get the stops it needed to. There were a couple of fumbles where USC Zachariah Branch was just barely above the ground when he fumbled. UCLA's player was just on the ground when he fumbled. There was a snap that went off Garbers' face mask. It bounced right back into his hands. Jalen Smith chasing Garbers down on that touchdown here in this end zone. Just couldn't quite get to him. And I think it comes down to just that's the football team USC has been this season. When they needed to make the plays, when the plays needed to be made to get a win, USC couldn't do it when they did it last year. Sometimes it's a culture thing. Sometimes it's an X's and O's thing. Sometimes it's a coaching thing. Lincoln Riley took the blame today, but there's a lot of blame to go around in a lot of different areas. USC special teams, defense, and offense. Really, there's no aspect of this game that you come away feeling very good about, and that's not what you want to see in the final game of the regular season.
I do believe in football a little bit. You make your own luck, too. Like, how physical was UCLA, and that defense, that should be everything that USC is looking for, and maybe they'll be interested in Danton Lynn in the future, the defensive coordinator for UCLA. I mean, just the amount of times that a USC receiver like Taj Washington would catch a screen pass, and then instantly he's hammered. And Zachariah Branch, it takes a group of tacklers to bring him down, but one guy's going for the ball, and he gets the ball out. I thought UCLA did their homework really well, and they kind of made their own luck in this game. USC put the ball on the ground 3 times. UCLA recovered 2 of them. Just thought they were physical, really well prepared, strong. It just looked like if you're USC, that's what you should strive for on defense. And that's too bad that your rival comes into your arena and does that to you. Tough blow.
Yeah, no team has won at home in this rivalry since 2019 when the Trojans threw for over 500 yards here in this building, 4 different 100-yard receivers. That was really the last time USC has really balled out against a UCLA team. They won close in 2020. They got blown out here in 2021. They won last year, obviously, on the road with Caleb Williams in 2022, but this game was a blowout for UCLA. They only win by 18, but there were points where it was a 25-point lead for UCLA in the second half. I thought Caleb Williams played well, despite the way the offensive line played ahead of him, and despite the way that the wide receivers played on the outside. Marshawn Lloyd fumbling the ball as well. USC running for under 5 yards, I believe, in the entire game. Thought Caleb Williams played well. Would have loved to talk to him about it. USC's SID, Katie Ryan, came into the room after Lincoln Riley's press conference and said, Caleb has elected not to speak to the media. It could very well be the last time that we see him in Cardinal and Gold, and didn't get a chance to talk to him after the game. So it's his decision. He's got a big decision coming up about whether to go to the NFL or stay in college, as well as whether to play in the bowl game. But it feels like today was a sign that those decisions have been made by Williams.
If you're a quarterback, especially one like Caleb Williams, and you don't talk after your potential last game, I mean, that's unacceptable. That's what quarterbacks do. You bring up Drew Aller after that awful Ohio State game. He's bawling his eyes out, but he still talks to the media after a disappointing loss. And Williams, I thought, played pretty well today. What a throw he had to Brendan Rice for the lone touchdown that they had in the air. That was an epic moonshot, hit Rice right in stride. That was a beautiful play. It's a shame. I think USC fans deserve to hear Williams today, and he would have gotten a lot of questions. Was this your last game? What are your plans for the future? And if he's tired of answering them, I get it, but it's an easy fix. Just say, hey, I haven't made that decision yet. I think people in our positions, like, the time is now to write like a Caleb Williams reflection on his career, and it would have been really helpful to get some insight into what he had to say after a disappointing loss to UCLA. So I would just describe that situation as unacceptable. It was his decision, and it had nothing to do with USC.
I'm not sure he would have been met with much criticism either. No. It would have been a chance for him to reflect on what is his USC career. It definitely would have just
This will lead to a hell of a lot more criticism, for sure. And now all the NFL draft people, oh, he's not talking after he lost a game. What does that mean for his future? Can we trust him with the number one pick? Like, the narrative is already starting with him, and I feel like the blow could have been softened a little bit if he just stood there for 5 minutes and answered a few questions.
And maybe it's the last time that we get to talk to him in general. Don't think we have media availability next week for USC's bye week. If he's not playing in the bowl game, he might not be at practice. He might not be made available. You could potentially think about it, try and put the pieces together. The next time Caleb Williams speaks publicly might be the NFL Combine, and that's still an optional spot for him. Of course, he'll probably go just to meet with teams, have those individual interviews, but we might have talked to Caleb Williams for the last time the other day on Wednesday.
I think so, and he said all the right things there, that he hadn't made the decision yet about the bowl game or the draft, but reading into it, I mean, I don't want to pour gasoline on the fire, but if you're Caleb Williams, why would you want to come back after what's happened this season?
Probably the most disappointing USC season since 2012, where they started out ranked number 1 in the poll, went to the Sun Bowl. USC is probably in for a similar fate. We will see, after next weekend where the Trojans end up. The thoughts were maybe the Alamo Bowl. I'm not sure if that's still in the cards for USC after a 7-5 regular season. They started number 5 in the poll. They end with 5 losses here in the regular season in 2023.
So disappointing. After the game, the biggest takeaway I had from Lincoln Riley's comments, Jack, he said, I didn't get the offense ready to go today. And earlier he said he didn't get the whole team ready to go, but later on when he was talking, he talked about getting the offense ready to go. And I just think that speaks to the whole thing here at USC. Like, the defense was so bad this year. He needs to do a better job of overseeing the whole operation. And who am I to say that? Lincoln Riley has won 80% of his games, all the stuff he's done with the Heisman winners, it's been great. But I think this season is going to allow him, or force him, I should say, not allow him, to look in the mirror. And just the fact that after this game, when, the offense didn't play that well, but defensively, again, that's what really lost you the game, allowing all those points to UCLA. And he says, I didn't get the offense ready to go. I wish he treated offense or defense like he treats the offense a little bit, and it's just different, but that just kind of stuck with me. Like, you didn't get the offense ready to go. Like, the team wasn't ready to go.
Feels like USC wasn't ready to go for a lot of the games this season, especially late down the stretch in some of those games. They finished out the season going from 6-0 to 7-5 is just not what you want to see from the Trojans, and they could very easily have finished under 500 if two different two-point conversions go different ways. They get the two-point conversion stop against Arizona to win in triple overtime. Then they stopped Cal. Colorado didn't get an onside kick, but you felt like if they did, then they could have gone and won. The USC may be lucky to end up the season at 7-5. Lincoln Riley had never had more than a 3-loss team in his career. Now they lose 5. I think that will force a lot of introspection from USC's second-year head coach heading into his third year if he decides to stay. There have been rumors floating around. can't read into those, at all, but neither did the Oklahoma reporters a couple seasons ago. But, no reflection on what Lincoln Riley's decision could be, but you likely aren't getting Caleb Williams back, and we will see what the future of this program is like. But if it's anything like what happened this year, USC is in for a long year ahead in the Big Ten next year, trying to find a quarterback and weave their way through what is going to be a very, very difficult schedule.
The big takeaway from this season, I think, the play on the lines. When the competition got tougher, the play inside on the offensive line, on the defensive line, and even though today USC's defensive line did do okay, but overall, look at UCLA's defensive line. That's what a really good defensive line looks like. That's the lesson from this season. You got to get a lot better there to be competitive.
I feel like the culture had a big year in year one, maybe a slight bit of a letdown in year two. We will see which leaders are sticking around and are willing to lead this team as the program changes conferences. They will change quarterbacks likely, and you might need a culture shift as well to see if USC can take advantage of the move next year to the better competition. We've got lawnmowers around, so it's probably a good time to end out the regular season here on Instant Analysis. For Connor Morrissette, I'm Jack Smith. Thank you guys for tuning in all season. USC still has a bowl game left. They've got a bye week next week, but thank you guys for your continued support. Make sure you're leaving a like here on YouTube, hitting the subscribe button, and checking out USCfootball.com for all the other USC football coverage as we cover what's next in the future for Caleb Williams, USC, the bye week, the bowl game. That'll all be here on USCfootball.com. So thank you so much for tuning in all season. We will see you guys next time.